I'm a good example of the racism that takes place there because in every state we lived, I had to survive brutality of policemen. So I'm one of those who survived and lived, where I was nearly gunned down by police, beat up by police, brutality, and then comes to my son and myself, and we are both accosted by the police, where to my wife had to go and put on a search for us. We were with the police. Wow. And how many generations do we go through, before you know that this place is not good for us?
We have to, in the United States, we have to defend how we speak. We have to defend how we walk. We have to defend our body structure. We have to defend our hair. We have to defend our culture, things that we do as a people, our thinking process, how we position ourselves.
Can you just tell us more about you guys? Maybe if you can tell more about you to the people that are listening to, or maybe that are watching us.
Okay, I guess the first thing we'll introduce ourselves. I'm Rabbi James Byers.
And I'm Rabbis Avia Byers.
Wow. So the two of you are rabbis,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So how can two people being a rabbi marrying each other?
Well, it's different from, I think you might be relating to a priesthood that normally they don't marry. But in the Hebrew culture, it is part of our command that we are fruitful and multiply. So therefore, in order to do that, we marry. So as we marry, the other command is that we teach our children the love of God. And so as we teach our children, we have children, we teach them, and it just repeats the cycle for mankind, basically. And so what we basically are commanded to do is to love God first and then ourselves. And so in order to love Him, we must love each other. So in order to love each other, we also need to, bring our children into that same type of love, so that when they grow up, they also repeat the same cycle of love and family. And so when we grow up and begin to have families, we learn how to teach them and just how to repeat the cycle of love.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
answering that question, how to, both rabbis, they can come together and be married. I believe all things are orchestrated and ordained by the Most High. And I believe that there is a match for everyone that is born. I believe that. And as we even see in the scriptures with the prophet Isaiah or Yeshayahu, he calls his wife the prophetess. So they have the same anointing on their life, and Father has brought them together. So I look at us in that same way, that we have the same anointing on our life, and that He's brought us together. And in that, we do a work that is really powerful.
Yes, indeed, you guys are being together. What's the reason behind you guys coming to Africa for the first time, or maybe you coming to establish yourself in Africa?
The first time we came was for a visit in 2021. We had been doing some research on Africa itself.
Yeah.
And as we, begin to focus on Africa, Ghana, the appeal was English speakers.
Yeah.
And we heard the voice of the president here who said, "Come home."
Yeah. The year of return.
The year of return. So 2021, after seeing what took place in 2019, the 400-year anniversary of African American being taken into the diaspora, being ministers of the gospel and the word, knowing that the time was near and the 400th year, which is a year of promise. So I'm sure A lot of people are familiar with Genesis chapter 15:13, where God told Abraham that his descendants would be enslaved and mistreated for a period of 400 years. So that 400th year has come, and now what we are seeing is the awakening of the tribes of Israel, and people are starting to come from the diaspora. And so that was our drive, saying, wait a minute, why are we still here? And so when we looked at, the movement, and we start seeing the festivities over here in Africa, and the president, saying, come home, come home.
Yeah.
We was like, why are we waiting?
Right.
And so,
and we did our ancestry and found that our ancestry moved around a lot, our bloodlines, as they were Bantu people, but ended up in Ghana. So our bloodline is even in the soil, in the land of Ghana. So we believe we're home. We were coming home.
If I'm supposed to ask this question, maybe I'm not trying to disrespect you guys, but did you ever try to do a DNA test to know that your bloodline comes from Ghana or maybe any other African country?
Yes, that's what we did. We did do a DNA test, and it was through Ancestry. And then My Ancestry, which takes you into the mitochondrial DNA of your ancestry, and it brought us to Ghana. There were different places, because the people, they're very nomadic people. Our people, both of our lines was a nomadic people, but they ended up, somebody married a Ghanaian and they ended up in Ghana, and then was put on a slave ship and taken to the Americas, and here we are.
A whole lot of diasporas are saying that Africa is a heaven, okay? And we Africans, I'm also part of it, so I'm not trying to exclude myself in it. And also some of the Africans are saying that America is also a heaven. America is a land for the hope. Whether you go there, when you get there, you make money, you make a whole lot of things. You diasporas are running away coming to Africa, and Africans are also running away going to America. What are the difference? I want to know. Why are people running away from Africa? People also running away from America coming to Africa.
I don't know why they're running away from Africa, but I could understand if people, the same reason that someone in the southern region of the United States may get tired of the South and want to see the big city of the North, so they go north to New York or Chicago. That happened all the time. Both of our families are a result of that. My family was in Sylvania, Georgia, and then moved up to New York. My husband's family
North Carolina.
was in North Carolina, moved up to New York. Well, South Carolina, then to North Carolina, and then to New York. So I think it's the same concept, but I can tell you why we ran from the United States. There's so much in the United States and that has propagated racism, is nurtured there. We don't realize as a people of color how damaged we are and how defensive we are. We have to, in the United States, we have to defend how we speak. We have to defend how we walk. We have to defend our body structure. We have to defend our hair. We have to defend our culture, things that we do as a people, our thinking process, how we position ourselves. We have to defend ourselves, how we sit in a chair. Everything that we do, it's like it's nitpicked by the dominant race.
Example. My father, his generation left the South because of racism. And to protect his children, we were raised in the North. But then, as we moved back to North Carolina, we met, married. Then we left North Carolina, went back to the North as a couple. So we lived in New York, then Washington, D.C., back down to North Carolina. But in each of these instances, I'm a good example of the racism that takes place there, because in every state we lived, I had to survive brutality of policemen. So I'm one of those who survived and lived, where I was nearly gunned down by police, beat up by police, brutality, and then comes, my son and myself, and we are both accosted by the police, where to my wife had to go and put on a search for us. We were with the police. Wow. And how many generations do we go through, before you know that this place is not good for us? So for us to come to Ghana, when we got stopped here by police, it was so different.
Right.
The first time we got stopped, the police said, "Welcome home." And the big smile that came upon our face was so welcome, because we knew we were home. They said, "You made it back.
You made it back.
Welcome home."
Wow.
So there's a difference in the contrast. In one area, when you go out as a black man, you don't know if you're coming home.
You don't know.
Then you become afraid for your sons and your daughters.
Right.
And so that begins to weigh on your mind, and you're thinking, do I need to get out of here and get my family out of here while we're still intact? Mm-hmm. And then coming here for us is paving a road for our families, because now we have grandchildren.
Wow.
And we need to pave the road for them to come home too.
And these are the things that occurred on a constant basis. Now, my husband is one person who was stopped multiple times by police, put a gun to his head, things that were just for standing in front of a bank, him and my son. And our son was the bank manager in training. Wow. And they pulled him over and said, someone called in and said 2 black men are robbing the bank.
Wow.
And they were standing outside the bank talking.
Doing bank business.
In the United States, the Jim Crow laws are still intact, and they still say that if it's against the law for more than 3 men, black men, to stand on a corner. That's when you'll see police start coming around. They want to know why those 3 men are standing on the corner. I worked at the University of a university in North Carolina, Winston-Salem, and 3 of the professors were standing on the corner, and they sent the police over and said, "There's 3." They didn't know they were professors, but they were professors in the university. And they sent the police over there and said, "Why are they standing on the corner?" And told them to disperse.
For no reason.
For no reason. They're just standing there talking after lunch. These are things that we as people of color in that country have had to endure. And because of it, we have dealt with post-traumatic syndrome, where you always feel defensive, on the defense. You always have to be on the defense, because someone white may come up to you and say, "You're in the wrong parking space. You shouldn't be going up this side of the staircase. You should go up that side. You shouldn't be walking down the street. Why are you on our block? Why are you walking your dog?
Why are you driving your own car?
Why are you driving that car?"
I've been stopped for driving a nice car.
Mm-hmm. How did you get that? How did you buy that home? These are things that happen. A white gentleman drove around in our neighborhood when we bought our home in North Carolina and yelled out the window, "How did you ends afford these houses?" These are the kinds of things that that's why, unfortunately, when we come to Africa,
Wow.
and come around a people that are so welcoming and humble, we can tend to be a little abrasive, because we're not used to being treated kindly. And now I have even had to learn how, when the police stop you, to smile, because you don't have to be on guard. You don't have to be ready to defend yourself, because they don't want to harm you. They just want to say, our police officers down here, they just want to say, "Good afternoon, good evening, how are you today?"
So friendly.
Yes.
Wow.
But we don't get that in the U.S.
So definitely, if I am not trying to say or maybe to make a wrong prediction, maybe you guys have lived in America for more than 20 years and you've had these experiences about this, how you guys have been brutally attacked and so forth. What makes you think, or maybe what ginger you guys for you to come to Africa? Like, what impacted you to come to Africa?
Well, coming to Africa was not really a very lengthy process for us. Again, because we are students of the Bible and understanding the prophecy of time and the promise that was given to Father Abraham, we know that it was time for something to take place worldwide. So when COVID-19 happened, we see the whole world on lockdown, and we're like, okay, God, Elohim, Yahweh, he's doing something in the earth and he's catching our attention. And then we see the year of return happening, and you know, we're still not clicking in it. But the next year and the next year, we're like, why are we still sitting here? When on two sides of the Atlantic, we're seeing the witness of President Nana Addo here saying, come home, it's time, 400 years is over. And myself as a minister, this is what I've been speaking and teaching for years.
Prophecy.
That this year of 2019 will be the year, because 1619 to 2019 is your 400-year period. Something is going to happen. But what we see is COVID-19 and the whole world on lockdown. Everybody sent home. What is God up to? And so as we begin to really analyze and look, we have the president in the US who signs an agreement into a bill into law saying that African Americans have been there 400 years. So now we have two witnesses, one on one side of the Atlantic and the other side of the Atlantic. They can't be wrong. And so we're like, why are we still here? And so we made up our minds. We said, you know what? Let's go ahead, take a visit. We talked with our family and we said, okay, we're going to go and visit. 2021, we came and visited. And the emotions that came on us. We visited the dungeon. They call it the castle, but it's definitely a dungeon. And as we visited the dungeon and other places, the Black Star and the different places that Ghana has here, what memories that are locked here of history that tells us who we are. But in America, we don't know, because 400 years or more of slavery, we have no clue. So the idea of we were coming from slavers and slave ancestors is a roadblock to the great treasures that lie here in the Africas. Not only Ghana, but all over Africa, there is such treasure of our history. Now, I must say, for us, we know that our history goes beyond Africa, because before Africa, going back to 70 AD, when Jerusalem was burnt down, those who survived ran into Africa. Not to go into the whole history, but you have about 1500 years of those who survived from Jerusalem, the Hebrews, now filtering into the African lands and marrying and repopulating. And this is where our DNA comes in, where we see and know that our DNA is right here among the Hebrews and the Africans.
That's right.
The Africans are a lot of the Hebrews.
Absolutely, because even the word Ghana is Hebrew for garden. So when I looked at that and I thought about the prophecy of Yeshua HaMashiach, he said, so as it was in the day of Noah, so shall it be in the coming of the Son of Man. And when people they locked people in. That's exactly what Father Yah did during Noah's time. They were locked in. And then there was a flood that occurred. So all of the elements of Noah's time is we are dealing with those times right now. Look at what the world is going through, the devastation and atrocities that's happening in the United States. Every other day we're hearing of mass shootings. There was one 2 days ago, 3 days ago. There was one 3 days before that. There was one today. There are judgments that are happening upon the earth, that if we are good students of the scripture, we've got to know that this is the time of our Elohim, and that he's making war, and that the earth is saying that it is in groaning for the sons of Elohim, or the sons of God, to be revealed. And that's what's happening. The sons of God are being
So speaking of the timing, coming here, getting off the airplane, we had a little bit of a slowdown at immigration as we were applying for our citizenship and all the legal paperwork we had to do. So going through immigration, we had just a bit of a kind of slowdown. And so they were saying, one of the good reasons as to why to be here, why to have come. And so I was asked at immigration, they said, well, who told you to come here? Well, I said the president. And so I looked at the immigrations officer, because we were taken from immigrations to the president Jubilee House, to the president's house, because the statement was made at immigrations. If you get a letter of recommendation from the president, then you would probably sail pretty smoothly through the process. So next thing we know, our sponsor had us at the president's house, and we're like, we are at the president's house, for real.
And the diaspora director of diaspora affairs came out, and he asked, "What? So who told you to come here?" And so my husband said, "The president. The president told us to come here."
And we all laughed. I laughed. Wow. And he said, "Okay." He said, "Well,
how many more are coming?"
I said, "A whole lot more."
A whole lot more. We don't know.
So the immigrations person went through the process of questionings, and then presented it to the president's office, and then came back sometime later and presented us with a letter, a recommendation from the president.
Wow.
And we took that, went back to immigrations, and it was smooth sailing.
Wow.
Because we said that the president said on television, 400 years is long enough. Come home. And we heard, and that's what we did.
Indeed, Africa is really the best continent in the world.
Yes, it is.
Whether you like it or not,
That's
I am
right.
an African.
Absolutely.
I will still be an African. You can never do anything to change my mind.
That's
But
right.
you guys, I really like the conversation, because it's so fun, it's so amazing, and I do like it. But in case of a relationship, maybe you guys are into relationship, you are married now. Okay, so making a decision coming to Africa, there has to be a master plan. So ladies are kind of convincing men and so forth to do things that they are not even ready to do. I just wanted to know, who really brought the master plan for you guys to come to Africa?
I think for us, it wasn't one or the other. We both were sitting in a gathering, and the message was actually being spoken. We was watching a movie. We were watching a movie called Hebrews to Negroes. And if you've heard of the controversy that has been with looking at such a type, or looking at this type of movie, and the awakening that it is causing, the stir in the Hebrew community or the Black community. As we were sitting in this audience, something was said. He was saying that he was on his way to Africa. And then, at that precise moment, as we were looking at DNA samples and looking at Africans and looking at our relationships, bone structures, because this brother is, he was bringing very
got a medical background.
Right. So he was bringing some very strong knowledge into the mix. And all of a sudden we looked at each other and like, what are we waiting for?
Yes, I remember what he said. He said Noah. When Noah was commanded to get in the ark before the rain started.
Before the rain started.
We looked at each other and said, that's right. We don't wait until the rain has started to go and get in the place of protection. And we truly believe that Africa is that continent, is that place of protection. We see all throughout the scripture where Father Yah sends his people into Africa. Go hide in Africa. Go hide. And he also says in prophecy that he gives the land to his people, and that it is up around the Euphrates, down into Nile, and he says, and the waters west of the Nile. Well, what is that? But the African Ocean, that's called the Atlantic Ocean now, but that's the Gold Coast, that's Sierra Leone, that's Ghana, Nigeria, all of that place. That's the west, that's west of the Nile. Wow. So as we were looking at those prophecies, we're like, we need to leave. And we need to tell everybody we know to leave and go into Africa, whether it is, Tanzania, wherever the Holy Spirit is leading you.
This is like Joseph.
Yeah,
Joseph, he had to go ahead of his family.
Had to go ahead of his family.
And, when you look at 20 years between the time he went and how he went, is quite justified, because when the time came for his family to leave where they were, they were saved because Joseph had went ahead of them. That's right. And because he became second in command in Egypt. That's right. He was in the right place at the right time. So for us, we're looking at when time comes for Israel to come home. They got to come home to Africa, because Jerusalem is in Africa. Yeah. It's not like it's a different continent. It's the very same continent.
On the same tectonic plate. Exactly. And I don't care how many Suez canals you put through there to try to separate it from Africa. You cannot separate this continent. You cannot do it. And that's what they've tried to do.
It belongs to God.
That's right.
This is the bread basket for the world.
Of the world.
The world needs Africa. Africa don't need the world. All of the gold, the silver, everything is right here. This is the bread basket of the world.
And when we got here and we looked at the plushness of the land and how just fruit trees, papaya trees, those coconut trees, that is just crazy to me.
Land of milk and honey.
How many coconuts are on that tree? Pineapples, fruit. Oh, palm trees and the palms that are harvested from those trees. This place is truly the Garden of Eden.
Yes.
It is truly the land flowing with milk and honey. Anytime you can go out your backyard and you didn't really plant them, and you can pick veggies out your backyard, bring them in the house, wash them off, and cook them. Wow. You're probably living in the land of milk and honey.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's what we can see, just the beauty of it and the beauty of the people. The people are so welcoming. Everyone is wanting to be your friend and wanting to help. And the thing that I love about Ghana and about Ghanaians is that they don't ask you if you need help. They see a need and they meet it.
Wow. They jump right in.
They jump right in. So if they see you carrying something that's too heavy, they don't ask you, ma'am, would you like for me to help you? They just go over and help.
Such a positive energy.
Absolutely. We don't experience that in the United States.
Wow.
And we've gotten to a place where we've been taught by the colonizers how to hate each other. So we don't even ask each other for help. Well, I mean, we don't even go and see our neighbor needs help, who looks like us, and help them. But here in this place, we see the love and the love for God, the Creator.
Doing my searches through the telephone or the map, I saw a place called, what was it? The House of Israel.
House of Israel.
House of Israel. So I called it, and it was on the weekend, so no one was at work.
Yes.
So I left a message, and I said, hello, my name is Rabbi Byers. We wanted to know what, day and time you're having service. Well, after finding out this was a business,
A grocery store.
we had a big laugh because it was a grocery store, and I'm leaving my name as Rabbi Byers. We want to come and visit your congregation for service. Well, it wasn't that type. It was a grocery store.
Wow.
But that's reflective of the love
culture.
and the culture that cultivates God here.
Absolutely.
So we wanted to come and be a part of it.
And in the Torah, it says, and you shall write them on the words of Elohim. It says, you shall love Yahweh with all your heart, all your being, all your might. And it says, and you shall write them on the doorpost of your house and on your gates. And when we would ride past houses
That's a natural.
and see scriptures on the gates, all types of things saying the house of Israel on people's gates, scriptures on gates. I mean, just finding out that the symbol in major symbol in Ghana, Naomi, is God. It's all about God. It's like just understand it's about God, period. And we love to hear that, especially when the politicians are speaking. And I love when they're at the UN and they're speaking and they say, the president of Ghana got on there after the whole plague of COVID-19. And he said it was said in many countries in the UN that dead bodies were going to line the streets of Africa. And he said, but praise be to God. Y'all got it worse than we did. I started laughing. I said, now see that acknowledgement that there is a creator, there is the creator, and that everything under him is less than and can never be greater than. So we're just excited about being here. This
Truly.
has been an awesome experience. It's been a great experience of culture. There's been some definitely cultural differences, but they're not the ones that can't be overcome, because we understand we're no longer in the United States and that we want to be part of our people here, because we thought we were living over there, but the living is really here.
The freedom to just walk out your door,
absolutely,
knowing that you're returning home,
and you're okay. I loved seeing when we first came here, little children walking home from school. They're really small, and I'm like, they're walking home from school by themselves. Wow. And I thought to myself, that is so wonderful. And nobody is afraid. His mother's not afraid that he's not going to make it home, that somebody's going to grab him and snatch him or do something terrible to him. The kids are just in their uniforms and just laughing, and all of the happiness and just beautiful.
To see people out in the streets at night
walking.
Single women can walk by themselves in the street at night.
And nobody thinks somebody's going to come up and rape me.
A child can be outside still playing after dark
at night.
That's different.
That's not United States.
Yeah.
And there's something that every black family will tell you. Every black person will tell you in the United States. If you ask them, what time did you have to be home at night? And what would we all say?
When the street
light come on,
you're at home.
You better be at home.
Wow.
Exactly.
So 6 p.m. you have to be at home.
Absolutely. Whatever time.
No children are to be on the street after sundown.
Because that was a cultural thing. Because people will kill your child.
Wow.
There was a time in the South,
Not only the
in the
children,
deep South,
but people are raped, killed, all
absolutely.
types of
You will
things
never
take
see them
place
again
because,
of the
people,
racism.
yeah.
Absolutely. So that was a statement
But
that we laugh
to
about.
be fair though, to be fair, we can see the same thing in any, I guess, community, whether black or white, because there's black on black crime just like there's white
Right.
on white
Right.
crime.
Right.
But you have a greater chance of something happening to you because you were out at night.
At night. And it came from Jim Crow South.
Wow.
Get your children home. Make sure they're home before it's dark.
Wow. Definitely, I'm learning this Black American history for now, because you are the only first person telling me all these things and all this history. You guys coming to Africa, I know a whole lot of people normally gamble, sell their things, sell a whole lot of stuff before coming to Africa, because people are sometimes saying that it's quite expensive traveling from United States of America coming to Africa. Did you guys ever had that kind of gambling, selling your house, your homes, and anything of coming to Africa?
Mhm. We did. We actually sold everything. And what we didn't sell, we gave away. So we sold our home, we sold our cars. All of that we put into a pot to be able to come here to buy a home, to purchase a car. Our furniture, a lot of our furniture, we gave away to people who we knew were, in need or needed. Our neighbors, hey, do you want anything in our house? Open the doors and let them come in, and they could take whatever. Family members, we gave those things to. So we literally brought only what was really important that we knew, like pictures, important documents and papers, things that we treasured. But most of the other, we sold.
Right. We
Thanks.
pretty much got rid of everything before we came,
Mhm.
and knowing that once we got here, we can
Just
replace
purchase.
anything we needed.
Mhm.
And so for us, it was a labor of love, because we knew we were destined
Mhm.
to come to Africa.
Absolutely.
In every continent, there is this bad and there is good at any continent. So, as you guys were selling your stuffs, coming to Africa, risking or maybe gambling, trying to sell your homes and so forth, coming to Africa, what if you came to Africa and it's never worked for you? How would you feel? How would you go back to the state to?
Well,
For us, it was never a thought
yeah, we didn't
of
think
going
about
back,
that.
even to this moment. It's not even a contemplation of going back. Uh, we knew that someday, see, this is very generational for us, because coming out of slavery, we're out of slavery now just over 100 and almost 160 years. And so for us, we still have a lot of the residue of slavery.
Right.
So for us, we always knew that there was something better
Right.
than the situation we were in. And so to come here to Africa, to see black pilots, stewardess, black, get off the plane and you see black billboards. The businesses
Business people.
are black.
The politicians.
And so it wasn't a negative
the police.
for us to sell off everything there, because all of our life, it's always been a white nation.
Right.
Whites always had better everything, better
everything.
jobs, better
Right.
everything.
That's why we've had to fight for
So
everything.
in order to grow in that society, it took us, years to grow to a level where we were considered middle class.
Middle class.
And as middle class, we did have a nice home. We always had a nice car. We raised our
Raised our
families,
children.
and our families are repeating the same thing. Our son is
He's a financial
yes, he's an
estate
economist.
planner.
He's a professor at a prestigious college. And our daughter,
Have
she's
historically
a
black
scientist herself. She does a lot of research. So we see our families repeating and not having to go back.
Yeah.
So this would be something glamorous, I would say, as you were asking before. Well, Africans who are saying, let us go to America and make money. You can make money, but at what cost are you going to pay
Right.
for a certain lifestyle?
Absolutely.
You will, again, myself almost losing my life, several times dealing with police. And then, you got high crime rate, period. And so it used to be a facade that was carried that this is all in Black people's mind until smartphones. And then you start seeing this. So by the time, like my generation, by the time, I had to go through some issues, we didn't have cell phones.
Right.
But now in my son's generation, we see, what's going on. Now people believe us.
Right.
So it's not so beautiful as when you look from our side of the fence.
Right.
And so for us to come here and say, to sell off everything there, to come here, hey, what we've done over there, we can do here.
We can do here. Absolutely.
So we don't have to give up, the big, beautiful, fine homes and the big, beautiful cars and all the, the Hollywood and all of that, because all of that is really just a facade that says, when you look at America from the outside, they're always going to show you the good.
Right.
You're always going to see people like the rappers who are, making big money but their lifestyle.
But at what cost?
At what cost?
Right.
You're going to see the actors and actresses who are living well and
that's only the 1%.
Mansions.
That's only the 1%.
But at what cost? If you talk to them, and you sit down with them, they'll tell you what they've had to go through just to be
get in the position where they are.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
To be paid the kind of money they're being paid, there's a major cost.
Absolutely.
To
That's
them.
Right. That's right.
And so, looking at it from that side, and then coming here, experiencing on the ground, man, look at that billboard. It's Black folks on it. The commercials, Black folks.
And even the homes.
Our people.
And even the homes that are built. My husband is a retired school teacher. Wow. So when we were retiring, one of his teachers came to me and said, Mr. Byers, you're moving to Africa. Where are you going to live? And I told him, you should have said, oh yeah, I found me and my wife a nice little cave right on the side of a mountain. I mean, they don't even realize.
You really don't know that Africa has modernized as well.
It's built up. The cities.
It has houses and buildings and roads.
Oh my
goodness. We didn't even know in America because the only pictures they ever showed us was starving Ethiopians with flies, big stomachs, and
oh my goodness, these really poor
and so not until
villages and whatever.
Facebook and the internet till we started talking to each other. I remember expressly when someone sent me some pictures of African housings. He said, take a look at these houses that are being built in Africa. And I started clicking through. This is within the last 10, 15 years. I'm clicking through. I'm like, what? I couldn't believe it because all I ever seen was the mud huts and the starving children. And it's like, really? Africa is also modern as well.
Absolutely.
With roads and cars.
Absolutely. And what they Hebrews, who we know the original ancient Hebrews were dark skinned. They look like us because we know that it was the continent of Africa where they were. The
hieroglyphics. The hieroglyphics,
exactly.
The pictures, the images that you see from the caves are people of color. And so as we begin to do more research on our culture, we begin to understand,
the pyramids.
Right, the pyramids. who were here. The ancient Hebrews were here and
Absolutely.
were enslaved to
Mhm.
build the cities.
Right.
And so, it's not a far stretch to understand that the pharaohs, wanted their treasure cities, and their belief systems, life after death and preparing for all that and everything, and wanted to take their wealth with them. So they had treasure cities built. Well, who was here? The Hebrews. So it's not a hard connection. And when
No.
you look at the scriptures, it makes
Sense.
it makes sense.
Perfect sense. And one part that really makes me know that they were modern societies. These walled cities like Jericho. The scripture talks about the walled and how they went into some of those cities through the sewage route.
Mm-hmm.
So sewage route. That means that's a modern city
Right.
where
Right.
you build a place for your sewage to come out and to
Yeah, that
be
is it.
to taken outside of your city. So we see that the modern manifestation, or the cities being manifested as they are, and they were modern people. So for us to look at Africans today and say, oh, they all live in mud huts. Oh, they all live, sometimes, people come, and I was talking to my ex-coworker, and I said, boy, it's so funny. I said, we were riding from Accra down to Cape Coast to go to service and to visit the Cape Coast dungeon, or Elmina dungeon. And I said, and there are all of these homes, all of these houses, all up and down the coastline. I said, and these are fishermen families, generations, for thousands of years, they've been
Well
fishing
established.
on those coasts. I said, and we'll look at them and say, oh, they're poor. I said, but they own the Gold Coast. How crazy is that statement? And so we look at people and say, oh, you're poor. But here we are in debt up to our throats, where we can't even breathe half the time, because the United States is a debt system. When we started paying off stuff, our credit rating plummeted
Wow.
because we paid off stuff.
Wow. So, the way you guys are being treated in America, okay, but sorry to ask, I'm not trying to disrespect you guys, so I'm sorry to ask. Don't you think the way you guys are being treated in America has given you this kind of mental health, or maybe a mental problem treating, or maybe dealing with some people over here in Africa?
Sometimes it does. Absolutely. And you have to watch yourself. There has to be a deprogramming. And there are, you know, things that we have to be re educated on. And how, like I said, I had to learn to smile at the police
Yes.
because they're not here to hurt me.
Yeah.
They're in the United States. If a white person gets pulled over, sees the blue and red lights behind them, they say, oh my gosh, I hope I don't get a ticket. But if we see it, we say, Father, Yahweh, please let me make it home.
Wow.
Because we don't know if we're going to live
We
through
don't
the
know if we're
exchange.
going to live through these, because they've learned how to escalate
Yes.
a situation.
Yeah.
So we come here, and unfortunately, a lot of our brothers and sisters will come with a lot of excess baggage and a lot of anger, a lot of just oppressive baggage, where you have to learn, go somewhere and get help. And so we're hoping that the more that we are here and more of us that come, that we will be able to help each other be able to deprogram ourselves, and not act like, okay, we got to come here and we have to act the same shrewd way that we acted over there, but that we can really come together and realize, hey, these are our brothers. But we have to learn to love ourselves and be able to love. our Ghanaian brothers and realize we're all brothers. We're all from the same mother and father.
And it may take, a few generations to
Hopefully not that.
really open up and let go of the past.
Yeah.
But we have to start somewhere.
Right.
So let us be the first generations of family that return in hopes that our family behind us will come. And then if they come, then that means their family behind them will also be here. And the healing can begin, because we have to sit down at the table.
Right.
Our African brothers and those from the diaspora. We now need to come to a table and sit down and begin to heal.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of tension that from our past, as you said,
Caused by the colonizers.
our past will come with us because that's what we know. And so we have to learn new culture. We have to learn Africa. We have to learn the different communities of Africa. And unless we sit down and begin to dialogue with each other and talk, we're always only going to have in our mind what we think, what we saw, what we learned on television, what was allowed to be fed to us through videos. And so unless we sit down at the table, they're going to think that all African American are rich. We're not rich. Once we sit down at the table and begin to dialogue together, begin to talk together, we can see that we each have our own story and history that we can share. Brother, let me tell you about my life in Africa. Let me tell you about my life in America. Let me tell you about my life in the Caribbean, Jamaica, the UK, all the different places, because we have to talk with them as well. We have to come home, and Africa have to host. Africa has to be the center of the diaspora, where we can all sit down and come back, because this is where we come from, and say, let me tell you about the first president of this country, the first president of that country, when we fought for independence, and looking at Kwame and different historians that we've never heard of, but were standing in the gap for Africans when they fought against the different colonizers themselves. See, we didn't know that y'all had to fight against the colonizers as well until the time of the apartheid start coming out, and then our eyes begin to open up, like in South Africa, the apartheid was experiencing the same thing we did. But come to find out, back in 1884, the whole continent of Africa was taken by the colonizers and split up, which gives me a different perspective when it comes to the scriptures, where it says that they cut up my land and divided. They've taken my land and divided up my land. We think about Jerusalem, the little small part of Africa. But they did the whole continent. In 1884, the Berlin meeting of the Europeans divided up the whole continent and enslaved the whole continent. And then it wasn't until the 1960s, 1957 here, when they went into Ghana went independent. And then others were, still up until the 1990s, and 2013 was the last, I think, the last one to go independent. Why, in such a modern time, are we still fighting for independence from these colonial countries who come in and take over the diamond mines, the gold mines, silver, the coffee, everything? They've taken everything. And which gives me a different perspective when I think about the scripture where it says, though you say you are poor, but you are rich. Wow. So even as Africans see themselves as working class citizens, You are actually the richest continent in the
Absolutely.
world.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And own it is the breadbasket of the world.
Yes.
The world needs Africa, and they know it. This is why they say, look, we have to keep Africa down so that we can always get what we need. And so we always must oppress them. And this is what they've said. We must always keep them oppressed so that they think they need us, so that we can always have what they need, what they have at our disposal.
And I think what the president in Uganda, I believe when he told them, we don't need you. You need Africa. You need Uganda. Uganda doesn't need you.
Yeah,
Boy, I think that sparked something in them.
of course.
Because something happens in an oppressor when they realize who they have oppressed is not going to allow them to oppress them
Of
anymore.
course.
There is a struggle, and they feel threatened by that. So then what do? So now the big thing is this whole LGBTQIA, whatever it is, which is not an issue in Africa. It's not. And I'm so glad that the different African presidents are saying that. We're trying to build up our infrastructure. We're trying to make sure our babies have food to eat and that they have schools to go to and that our seniors are being taken care of. We're building up our communities. We need to make sure we have proper roads, proper water, that our electricity is not going out every other day. We're not worried about no gay people having some kind of right. What kind of rights you want over regular human rights that everybody else has? You know, why is it? But that's the state and the mind of the United States and the UK, those white continents and colonizing countries that have tried to go around and tell everybody else what they are to do. The definition of a bully is when you are bigger and have more, where you think you have more resources and power, and you go out on the playground and tell everybody else not to play with them because they don't agree with me. That's the definition of a bully. Yeah. And that's what the United States, UK, all of those white nations are. They're bullies. Because nobody in Africa is going over to the United States saying, hey, y'all should take out that polygamy law, because it's okay for a man to have more than one wife, because that's in the Bible. Does anybody do that to them? No. So why are you coming over here telling African nations how our culture is supposed to be? Homosexuality has never been a thing in the Black culture until they made it a thing. And that was propagated and nurtured by white Americans and white Scandinavian countries coming from those white nations. So you know what? I am so glad that they sent what's her face, the Kamala Harris, sent her home and say, you know what? You got children being killed in schools every other day. I suggest you go home and take care of business at home. There's a song they made in the United States, sweep around your own front door before you try to sweep around mine. So go take care of home first, and then maybe we'll allow you to say something. But you can't come over here telling us how to live, and you got mass shootings in your country every other day. How about you pay attention to that instead of coming over here doing that?
Indeed, everybody has to mind his or her own business.
Absolutely.
So if you have your own country, you mind your own business. We also have our Ghana.
Absolutely.
We also mind our own business. Africa will always be Africa.
Absolutely.
Whether you like it or not, you need Africa.
Absolutely.
So,
Exactly.
Yes.
Absolutely. You don't like it? Don't come.
Of course.
If you don't like it, don't come. There's plenty of countries out there that the LGBT community can go parade around in their colorful little bodysuits or whatever they want to wear, and with colorful little wigs. Plenty of countries they can go and do that in. But you can't do it here.
Of course.
That's okay. Go everywhere else. Stay home and do that.
So what are the things that you diasporas or maybe the African Americans are doing to bridge the gap between the Africans, just to solve all this kind of oppression and this kind of treatment that the Americans or maybe the whites want to, or the culture they want to bring back to Africa?
The one thing I think, looking at the racism, basically, looking at the plight of the black man in America versus white man,
Family.
is bringing the black man back to zero, family. The culture that was fostered in the United States is you take the man out of the home, then the family will always need government. And so what you have is a government enterprise or raised home where there's
Right.
now a mother without the father trying to struggle,
Yeah.
raise the family. Whereas here in Africa, you see a very family oriented, centered nuclear family
Absolutely.
where you have mom and dad raising the family. Not saying every family is that way,
Right.
but the culture allows
That's the
for
culture.
the husband and wife to be a part of the life of the child. Whereas in the US, we'll give you, welfare, they call it, pay your rent
Right.
if you don't marry. So,
Or don't allow your a man to be in your home.
right.
Get the man out of your home. And even to the point with that welfare system, get your son. If your son is 15 years or older, get him out of the home. We can't give you welfare unless you get rid of him. I mean, just all kinds. If he's working a job, no, you can't get welfare because he's living in your house and he's working a job. It's systemic over there. It's systemic. It's a systemic way of keeping people oppressed. And the thing that we've seen that we love here in Ghana is, we were talking about the other day, the families, walking down the street, on a Sunday afternoon or a Saturday evening, you see the dad and the mom and the children and the baby, wrapped on the back of mama, and they're walking and talking, and the kids are playing, and it is just a beautiful,
Family-oriented.
beautiful culture. And it's a beautiful thing to see, and to see the positivity of our people here that doesn't get broadcasted over there. Because what happens, they like to broadcast the shows that are, where black people are oppressed, or there's only the woman in the house and they all live in the ghetto, or if they, or if there's two black women and I have two moms, or there's two black men and I have two dads, and this foolishness. And they are loving to nurture that within the black community. And now, before we left the United States, there was a huge influx of now all of the shows and the commercials have a black man and a white wife, and then, or a black woman and a white wife, a white husband. And we're like, what's going on with the commercials here? What's going on with these new TV shows? Where's our families? Put our black people together. We want to be together. But they're beginning that transition. And they're trying to make it sound like, oh, this is a wonderful thing. See, we're all just getting along. No, we're not, because you're still racist. Because the mere fact that you have to talk about a critical race issue, the mere fact that you have to discuss that tells you that there is a problem still, and it's systemic across the board.
And we are in the minority now.
Absolutely.
We've been married for 44 years in just a few weeks.
Yeah.
There's not a lot anymore of that length of marriage. And so for us, again, being in the minority, it's always looked at, wow. Looking, true story, picked up our daughter when she was in college, or no,
She was in high school.
she was in high school. And Another friend of her asked, could she ride home? Could we give her a ride home? Sure, get in. And when she got in, she was so surprised. She said to our daughter, Lori, you have a father.
You are so blessed.
Yeah, she just started saying, wow, how blessed you are. And we get that all the time in America, when it should be common that you see both mother and father. But this is something that is very, you see it, you recognize when there's a husband and wife together. And especially if I say, married for 44 years, wow, that don't happen anymore.
Yeah, myself, I said, wow.
It don't happen in the U.S. anymore because, divorce is so rampant.
So prevalent.
And living single, because whether it's financial reasons or because of moral reasons, whatever the reason,
Right.
the destruction of the Black family is very prevalent in the U.S. So for us to come here is like, how you need to take a break and catch your breath and regroup and then continue with life. This is what's happening for us.
Yes.
To come here is to regroup and say, you know what?
We're still exhaling.
Yes, it's like I have to remind myself, I'm really in another country. And I don't have to, every time
We don't have to put on airs.
yeah,
We
we
don't have to be a
we
certain
can just
way.
live
We don't
and be free.
have to put on
We
a
can
mask.
get up in the morning and in the day and go out our house and come back,
and
and feel like, I pray that I make it back, but that's the case. You don't know that you're going to make it back when you leave your home.
Absolutely.
And it's so bad now, you don't have to leave your home. You got Breonna Taylor, who was in her home sleeping when the police came in and shot her.
No reason.
For
No reason. So
At
these
the wrong
things are
house.
it's just crazy for
And
us.
that's not an isolated situation. That happens a lot more than they will ever tell and that they will ever reveal. Black homes are targeted and busted into, and then they say, oh, we had the wrong house. That's not an isolated situation. And it's very unfortunate.
And it's
But,
never restored.
It's not.
Whatever
ever
they broke to come
Whatever
in,
they did,
it's just broke.
you have to fix
Whatever
it.
they killed or
You
whoever they
have to
killed,
fix
they
it.
just did.
It's just
Because they
right,
get away with
right,
it.
right.
And how can you
Right.
how can you take a man's life
Mm-hmm.
and there's no consequence? So there's no fear for you as an assassin.
Mm-hmm. Officer of the
Indeed, I am on a journey of Africa is the key to the world. So whether I like it or not, Africa holds the key to the world. My final question that I want to ask you guys, do you think African leaders are really doing well for Africa in terms of development and growth?
Well, when it comes to the political arena, I think pretty much we hear, like the rest of the African nations, that so much corruption blocks the advancement of the cities and townships.
For the people.
And so, for the people, your infrastructure, far as
Right.
roads and schools and hospitals and things like that. Now, one thing I'm excited about hearing here in Ghana is there's been a working plan to build, I think in the 16 different provinces, hospitals, brand new hospitals. President Nana Adu have been putting out front monies to build the hospitals, to redo roads, and to bring in corporations and companies where people can work. And so all of these things are beautiful, and we applaud the presidency here in taking that initiative in doing that. But we also hear the other side where there's complaints that people are not doing enough. Politicians are not.
They promise and then they don't do. And I think that's everywhere. I think
Yeah,
that's
you're gonna
everywhere
get
in the
that.
world. We got that over in the United States. The people get up and they say, "Vote for me, I'm going to," and then they get in there and they don't do anything. So we're kind of used to that. But what we can see is that as countries go, we can see the differences of how the different governments are structuring themselves, and that some are extremely vibrant in their pursuit to enhance their communities. Just looking at, and it's one of the countries I really want to visit, which is Rwanda, where it talks about it being the cleanest, country, and that they have this love for the people, where they have a society that is very progressive in making things happen. So their roads are done, their infrastructure, they work on their electricity, their water, things that are important that you want to make sure. Housing. I see with Ghana, the housing is just going wild, crazy, where people are building
All
and
over the
things
place.
are, yes. It's progressive there. But as we look at them, we're also looking from the standpoint of where they are in the whole scheme of things concerning this world, and the systematic devices that are against our African nations. So we can see the progress that is trying to be made. But I really truly believe anytime you have some colonizers mixed up in there, there's going to be issues around them doing all that they want to try to do for the people. So if we can just keep our leaders, I say our, because we're just African.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If we can keep our leaders in a position where they will be progressive and want to give and help the people and not just line their pockets, then that Africa is going to move forward. I can only see great things that's going to happen. And I'm really excited about it. And even though people, complain about politicians and what they are not doing and all of that, we have the power to vote people in who we believe will. Now, I'm one of these people where I feel that there shouldn't be lifelong politicians. I think that's a problem. I think that regular people should be able to run for office and get that position and bring their ideas. I think that, and then they should do that for about 4 years and then go home. And then someone else should run and take over and bring more progressive ideas and do more things. And then they will do that for 4 years and then go home. I just don't like the idea of career politicians. I've just never liked that idea, because they become, and like in the United States, we saw it, they become complacent.
And so if it takes leaving the US or the UK or whatever, look, Africa is wide open.
Wide open.
What we've done for the nations, we can do here.
Absolutely.
And so if you begin to think outside of your present circumstances, there's a whole continent here.
Absolutely.
Where we can come and we can grow together.
Absolutely. And it's home. This is home. And so if I wanted to say anything, I'd say just come home. When we got off the plane at Kotakata, what am I talking? That's the wrong one.
Airport.
Kotoka.
Kotoka.
Yes, Kotoka International Airport.
International Airport. I'm thinking about Kotoka Market. When we got off there, we felt like we were home. So, I mean, just come home. Don't be afraid to come. Don't listen to the hype about don't drink the water when you go to Africa. Nobody ever tells you not to drink the water when you go to Europe. Anybody ever say that? No.
Don't eat the street
Don't
food.
eat the street food. Come and eat the
Really?
street food. Come and drink. I mean, just come and enjoy yourself. Come and have the experience of being on a continent with these beautiful Black people. This is a beautiful experience. It's a beautiful thing. Come and see the lushness of the land and know that this is the place where our forefathers lived and they dwelled and they raised families and they loved each other and they survived and that they built civilizations, and that this is the place where I believe this is me, Rabbis Avia 101. I believe that this is the place where Father says, when he says, come out of her, my people, that he's saying, go back into the land where your forefathers were, because that's the place where I'm going to protect you.
Wow, like she said, I also believe it. So whether you like it or not, Africa is Africa. We love Africa. So as you're also watching our YouTube channel, you keep subscribing our channel. We have another channel called Coco Strand TV. You have to also subscribe to our channel for us. And also we have a GoFundMe page if you want to support Clevijo, Team Clevijo, you want to support us. We have our link under the description of the video. So if you want to support us, you can just support us. So I guess we have a part 2 of this interview. I really like this interview, so we'll have a part 2. Maybe we'll fix a day, so we'll tell you guys for us to have the part 2 of this interview.
Can we give you our? We do have a web YouTube also.
All right.
I guess you.
It's a hashtag Let's Talk Torah Ghana. That's it. Hashtag Let's Talk Torah Ghana, and that we are that we have the Hebrew perspective that we do. But the Let's Talk Torah is on Facebook and on YouTube every Sunday, first day of the week at 2 p.m. We go on, and then during the week on Tuesday we're on there again around 7, and that's Ghana GMT time. So we do have that ministry, and if you want to learn, it's not just the Torah, but it's the Torah, the complete scripture.
Should we spell out the Torah part?
No, don't worry. Definitely, we'll take their social media handle. We'll put it under our description. So whenever you are also reading it, you can just go there and check out their page. Make sure you subscribe to our channel too. Please make sure you subscribe to their channel. You know, we are promoting Africa. They are part of it. I am part of it. So we all have to come together to promote Africa. So as you are watching us, you keep subscribing to our channel. So guys, I know you can do it. And you've done it before. So please subscribe to our channel. Bye-bye.
Thank you.